I wanted to continue talking about the sexual predators and the people who prey on the young folks and the naive. I don't really have to do much of research and reading about these types of things because I'm coming from a place of personal experience as well as witnessing some people who I've been close to experience fall victim to sexual predators and the people who like to prey on young women and kids. In other words, I've lived it. When I was a teenager, my first so-called boyfriend was too old for me, and I didn't want to accept that at the time, but if my parents wanted to push the issue, they could have put him in prison. Thankfully, I never had sex with him, but we did make out, which is probably illegal. He was 25 at the time and I was 17 years old, and we had his neighbors talking to me and talking to him and letting us know he could go to jail for this. So eventually he backed off, and I also had his mother looking out for me and telling me that he was too old and his past history. And I noticed that it's always some sorry, old ass, good for nothing man who has nothing to offer trying to prey upon the young girls or people who they think are easily taken advantage of and manipulated. In retrospect, at the time I couldn't see that this guy was no good, but in retrospect, I realized all he wanted was sex. He didn't really care for me or love me. He just wanted sex, and he wanted to be able to say that he was my first. But thank God that I had enough sense to withhold my virginity for someone more worthy. And I'm glad also that I had my parents and his mother warning me not to be involved with this guy because they saw what I couldn't see. I'm not sure if it was just out of sheer ignorance or him just not caring about the laws. But back in the day, it was very common. I had several older men, to approach me to try to start up something romantic. I'm talking about guys ranging in age from about their, maybe 23 to up into their 40s, 50s, and 60s approaching me and trying to get sex or trying to start up a romantic relationship with me. But I knew better. But yeah, getting back to the statutory rape, I'm not sure how the laws work in other states, but in the state of Florida, 16, I think, is the age of legal consent if the minor is having sex with another minor or someone who's close to their age group. But otherwise, the age of legal consent is 18 in order to be considered a legal adult and have the mental capacity to make a wise decision about having sex, who to have sex with. But at the same time, these guys who like to pursue young women and encourage other men to go after young women or young ladies, they better know what the fuck they're getting themselves into, because nowadays, maybe it may change in the future, but nowadays intent is not required in order to prove statutory rape. Usually in criminal law, there's elements to a crime, and intent is one of the elements to a crime to the prosecution proving that a crime occurred. But statutory rape is one of those legal theories, or is one of those rare laws that intent is not required. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to, the perpetrator does not even have to know that the person that they're having sex with is a minor in order to be charged with statutory rape. The only thing that needs to be proven is that some sexual act occurred between the perpetrator and the minor. So you guys better know what the hell you're doing if you choose to pursue young women in, under the age of 18, girls under the age of 18. because you basically opening up a can of worms for yourself, a can of worms for thousands of dollars in legal fees, and having that scar on your life and being labeled as a sex offender. And that's not fun. I mean, is it worth it? Is having sex with a underage person worth it? In my opinion, statutory rape is not necessarily the same as pedophilia. They may overlap. You have some instances where a girl may be 15 years old and look like a grown woman, be built like a grown woman. Sometimes it's hard to tell just by looking alone whether you're dealing with a minor or not. That's why it would behoove anyone who's thinking of engaging in a relationship with a person who's very young to ask for identification. I know that some people have the ability to come up with fake IDs and shit, but at least take the initiative to ask for the ID rather than making assumptions, because the law doesn't care whether you knew or not. At least in the state of Florida, the main thing that matters is whether a sex act occurred with a minor. Those laws were really put into place to reduce the amount of teenage pregnancies and reduce the out of wedlock birth rate. A lot of times these men would get these young women pregnant and then dump them because they don't want to face up to their responsibilities. You know what? I'm not an advocate of casual sex or sex with minors or sex with people who have not reached the age of legal consent. But I do believe that people should stick to those who are within their same age group. I don't think it's right for a 40-something-year-old man to be talking about hooking up with a 16-year-old child or a 17-year-old child, and vice versa. I think it's kind of creepy for a woman, an older woman, to be hooking up with a man who's young enough to be her son. But do what you do. As long as you do it within the confines of the law, you're complying and abiding by the law 100%. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing if you choose to pursue someone who's much younger than you. Make sure you get you some ID, or make sure that you understand the laws of your state where you reside, the country where you reside, pertaining to statutory rape and the age of legal consent. Because if you just blindly follow what these people encourage on the internet and other venues, then you better be prepared to suffer some consequences if you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Be prepared to be required to spend some time behind bars or to register as a sex offender. Be prepared to pay thousands of dollars in legal fees. I'm just keeping it 100% real. I realize that sometimes there's a thin line between what's considered pedophilia and legal sex with someone who's, quote, a minor, unquote. But I just don't think it's right. I don't think an older person should be trying to hook up. I think that the main reason why a lot of these older people seek to engage a younger person is because they're not capable of having a real solid relationship with a person who's on their same level emotionally or intellectually. They're not capable of having a relationship. Sometimes they're not capable of having a relationship with a woman or a man in their same age group. Maybe they're not emotionally or psychologically mature enough. Sometimes, it's the case that they're insecure and they know that if they seek a relationship with someone who's in their age group, that they're not going to be able to pull the wool over that person's eyes in the way that they would be able to do it to a person who doesn't know any better. So to me, it's all about them being able to control and mold and shape someone who's young and basically wet behind the ears and doesn't know anything about life. It's like they're grooming the person to be the way that they want them to be. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. And obviously there's a sexual aspect to it as well, to where they may feel that they're getting someone who's less used by going the route of pursuing someone younger. I'm not necessarily correct on everything that I say. Just make sure that you're following the law so that you won't have your, end up fucked up.